a little boy went out to play. When he opened his door, he saw the world. As he passed through the doorway, he caused a reflection. Evil was born. Evil was born and followed the boy.
I'm sorry, what is that?
An old tale, and the variation. A little girl went out to play. Lost in the marketplace, as if half-born.
The girls have heard this before, but 14 years ago, I had an operation on my arm here. Doctors said I wouldn't be able to use it. Well, what the hell do they know, I said. And I rubbed it for a half hour every day. And then I got so I could move it a little. And I got so I could turn a faucet. And pretty soon I had my arm back again. Now I can't feel a damn thing in it. All numb. I'm afraid to cut it, you know? Mary usually does the carving, but maybe tonight you'll do it, Henry. All right with you?
Of course. I'd be happy to. Do I just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.
think that what I was talking about is like no matter how strange the world is that you're making a film about, it's got to be a certain way. Once you see how that is, it can't be another way, or it's not that place anymore. It breaks the mood or the feeling. So you have these limitations, and you have these rules that you have to obey, or else you lose the the true feeling of the thing. And then the audience picks up on this, and that it just everything falls apart. There's where you get why these things are why everybody has a little something different to say, because it's up to whoever's writing or whoever's viewing to make up their own mind about what's going on. So it wouldn't do any good for me to say anymore.
What we did, I decided to just put everything on hold and watch David Lynch movies for the week. So we watched the majority of his movies I actually do have on Blu-ray, and a good portion of them are Criterion. So, we started off with Eraserhead. And Eraserhead, I got that like a few years ago, and it's a really fantastic. I mean, Criterion actually, he did this very nice, he worked with them to find the best versions of his movies. And also, he left calibration instructions for viewers like us on the screen in his menus. He say, this is the perfect way to watch it. Watch it this way. Calibrate your television to this. Here's a color chart. These are my colors. He does that all the way from Eraserhead, which is in black and white, to Mulholland Drive, which is his last Criterion. Well, I think it was his last one.
But it isn't something you remember. Forgetfulness. It happens to us all. And me? Why, I'm the worst one. Oh, where was I? Yes.
Well, one thing came first. Mel Brooks, and that's another whole story, but Mel Brooks, I don't know how this beautiful thing happened, but I'm forever thankful to Mel. He took a chance on me based on what he saw in Eraserhead.
What I saw in Eraserhead was symbolism that was not murky, symbolism that was clear. That baby was a monster. It took over I saw everything he wanted to say, surrealistically and symbolically, he said very brilliantly, very clearly. And I said, this guy will be a great filmmaker. And I'm gonna grab him first, and he's gonna direct this script, The Elephant Man. And he came in, he helped rewrite it, he helped on the makeup, and he helped on the beautiful black and white, photography. David Lynch is a bit of a genius. He really is.
And he also has calibration instructions for the viewer, for their TV, just like he did with projectionists in movie theaters. He would send them notes saying, this is how the blue should look, this is how the red should look, this is how the black should look.
You find Eraserhead to be extremely disturbing, correct?
There's something about it. It's funny. It's my daughter's favorite. She loves this movie. She loves Eraserhead. And
it's like my thoughts on it are, and I know that I think you told me about that you were watching it and you were very disturbed by, especially near the end with the weird baby thing. And
yeah,
as I'm watching it, and I'm watching it like 3 years ago ish on HBO Max at the time. And I'm seeing it slightly differently than you, or at least I'm not disturbed by any of the disturbing things, because it's just making me think of David Lynch. This is his experimental film, and he's like, I think he's got the dark sense of humor where he's like, I'm going to do the most fucked up thing, and I'm going to really mess with people's head. On that level, I was kind of laughing of like, how absurd is this going to be? And that was what I kind of thought. I almost saw it as a comedy. I saw it as an extremely dark, I'm gonna mess with people, I'm gonna make people walk out of the theater kind of comedy.
Mel Brooks was like, he bought the rights to the Elephant Man story, and he was looking for a director, and he knew he wanted it to be in black and white, but he also knew that the makeup was going to be very difficult. So he looked up David Lynch and flew him out to London and screened the movie and screened Eraserhead with him, and he said, "You got the job," and that's how he got it. It was like a stroke of luck. I mean, it was like even Lynch still didn't believe that Mel Brooks put so much faith in him to direct this movie. It was incredible that someone could be so born with such deformities and then to be treated the way he was. It's a movie I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to watch it this week because it's the one David Lynch movie that makes me cry, because there are some things that he did there was something that he added to the script, and it had to do with Merrick's mother, and she has this wonderful little speech at the end when he dies about how there is no death and that we all live forever. And this was a job that Lynch got from Brooks, so he was respectful to the process, and I guess because of that, it's what leads to Dune.
it's been very strange for me because these jumps from Eraserhead to Elephant Man to Dune are huge leaps. But Dune was a picture that took this much money, and so I never saw this money, and I just treated it as a normal picture. And it took 3.5 years to do it, working 6 days a week, but still the process of making the film is the same, tuning into this material and getting it somehow onto the screen. I didn't read science fiction, and Dune is a strange science fiction because it has other things, woven into it.
It's like he's writing a novel, but the novel is a movie. It's like it's completely a movie. It's interesting where he goes with Dune, because Dune is an adaptation. It's still, we may argue about this. I still prefer it to these two new movies that came out. To me, those two movies are unwatchable. They're 6 hours long, and they still.
I understand. Like, I can watch those new Dune movies, and I can understand it's straight science fiction. It's very reverential, and if you hadn't seen the David Lynch, you'd probably think it was the best sci-fi movie ever made, maybe. But when you watch the original David Lynch Dune first, like we have because we're old, and I saw it in the theater. I saw it Christmas Day. I'm like 13. I'm a little fat kid in the uncomfortable seat, and it's a long movie, and I'm like, I don't get it. Okay,
I saw it in the theater too. My mother dragged me because she was a big Frank Herbert Dune fan, so she dragged me to see the movie, and I enjoyed it for what it was, actually. But even if I didn't get it then, I read the books 10 years later, and I got it.
I think of it as a flawed masterpiece, as you can see the genius in there. Now, if you took the only way we're ever going to get that director's cut, because there's the Alan Smithy TV cut.
Judas Booth.
Judas Booth. Yeah.
Judas Booth and Alan Smithy. Judas Booth was the pseudonym that Lynch picked for his writer credit.
It's like if somebody could take that footage, you could take that footage. Maybe I do a better version of when they did the Superman 2 cut, but really clean up, work with the studio, work with the De Laurentiis people, because it's all just his kids now. So he's not, don't have to deal with that asshole.
Well, he wouldn't have that power, though. He wouldn't have the power to do that. Only De Laurentiis would have that power.
Well, maybe they can, make a deal.
That was the big problem. That was the huge problem that Lynch had when he went and shot. He shot all the movie and everything, and then.
Would love to. I'm sure Universal would love to make money and sell 4K discs for way too much money of that. I'm like, come in and do an alternate version, because again, the cut down movie version, the theatrical version, is still pretty darn good. And I did a rewatch of that. Once you've seen it a few times, I mean, it's literally like it's exposition, especially at the beginning. It's exposition dump after exposition dump after exposition dump, so you know what's going on. So if you really pay attention,
there's also a lot of internal monologue. More than 75% of the script's dialogue is just voiceover that is just basically people thinking aloud. So moving on from Dune, you have Blue Velvet. Ooh, now Blue Velvet is another movie I watched. It's maybe my favorite of the earlier Lynch. This is Lynch's opportunity to actually tell a story on his own terms. The first time.
This movie, I say, is about the mysteries of darkness and love.
That's sort of hard to do, isn't it? I actually found the movie very disturbing.
It's a disturbing thing because it's a trip beneath a beautiful surface, but to a fairly uneasy interior of a small town. I love to me, I grew up in the Northwest in a very, very beautiful world, and a lot of my life has been discovering this strange sickness, and it's got a fascination to me, and I love the idea of going into something and discovering a world and being able to watch it and experience it.
Because, well, Eraserhead, yes, fun, weird, experimental horror and comedy, but he didn't think it would probably go anywhere, so he was like, you know, I'm just going to make the movie and see what happens, right? But he had, like, he had a lot of help from other people. And then Elephant Man is a kind of a job. He has to work for Mel Brooks. And then Dune is like a job. He has to work for Dino. And then Blue Velvet is finally his opportunity to tell a story on his own terms. This is probably the biggest, the most famous. I will share one story about Blue Velvet from when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to see it. My mother went to see it on a date with someone. She was on a date, and she said it was like the first time she ever wanted to walk out on a movie. She thought it was the most disgusting, repulsive thing that she had ever seen in her life, and it was like terrible or something. That was what she said.
That made you want to see it, though, probably.
Well, no, I mean, I knew about the movie because I knew about David Lynch. It's a piece of Americana, and it's all summed up in that beautiful shot at the beginning with the white picket fence.
Yeah.
And the slow pan down to the bugs under the grass, and I think that was the point of Blue Velvet right there.
A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, go to sleep, everything is all right. I close my eyes, then I drift away into the magic night. I softly say a silent prayer, like dreamers do. Then I fall
Normally, I hate test screenings up until my experience with Wild at Heart. And they're very frightening things to show a film to people that haven't seen it, and especially for the first couple of times. And especially when you feel there's some things wrong, but we all sort of play tricks on ourselves. And so we started having some test screenings. And there was one particular scene where the first test screening, 80 people at a certain point in the film exited the theater, 80 out of 300. And then the next time we had the screening, I really wanted that scene exactly that way, and I thought it was a weird bunch, you know, anyway. And the next time, 100 people went out during that time. And the ones that stayed each time were very, very upset and pretty much against the picture from then on through.
Wild at Heart is the only, it's probably the only of the Lynch oeuvre, if you will, that I didn't really like it all that much, and I know why. 2 words: Nicolas Cage. I'm just not a fan of Nicolas Cage. I really am not. I love Laura Dern. I think she's wonderful. Willem Dafoe was great. I like the story, but I've never really liked Nicolas Cage. There's 2 movies I like of his: Raising Arizona and Vampire's Kiss. Everything else about the movie I really enjoyed.
You know what? I was going through my sort of movie snob phase of like, well, if I can't watch it in letterbox format, I'm not going to watch it. So I just never ended up watching it. And from what I could tell, it was horribly truncated in that old pan and scan, because he really used that widescreen frame.
He does, yeah. He did actually shoot it in Panavision, so it is wider, more anamorphic. I have the Blu-ray. I don't have a Criterion version of it, because they had a Blu-ray of it for like $5, so I snatched it up immediately a few years ago.
I was with an agency called CAA, Creative Artists Agency in LA. And there was a young agent there named Tony Krantz. He was all fired up that about Blue Velvet. He said, you should work with Mark Frost and make a TV show. And I said, Tony, I don't want to do a TV show. And shortly after that, Mark and I had lunch at Dupar's restaurant on Ventura Boulevard. And we started talking, and there was this dead girl, and started getting ideas. So one thing led to another, and
sorry, where did this dead girl go?
in our mind's eye.
I had visions of in the restaurant, you know.
Yeah.
It was such a big deal for about like a month, and then it started to get weird. And it was basically it was what is the mystery? Who killed Laura Palmer? Then it's like ABC says you got to tell us who killed her. So then they tell you who killed her. Now, of course, just because they solved the mystery of who did it, then you find out the why, because it's like, okay, so Bob did it?
It's a little more complicated than Bob. Bob is.
Yeah.
This
Bob
is how. Well, me and Regan.
Yeah, Bob
had
is
interpreted Bob as to be some kind of demon that possesses Leland Palmer, Laura's dad.
Yeah, and then when you get to the Twin Peaks the beginning thing, or the Twin Peaks the continue or whatever, the later one, you find out where Bob actually came from. And it was interesting. I thought that was so great about how, you know, some of the actors, you know, you have like you have Bob, you have David Bowie, like they can't come back because they're dead. Or they're in the case of David Bowie, he's probably just sick when they shot this.
We are not going to talk about Judy.
Somehow he made it work. Even it's like, well, I can't get this guy, and I can't get this. This person's dead. This person's sick, and somehow he still made it. He's like, okay, well, I can't have them. I'll make it weird.
Is that you? Philip? Cooper? Meet the long-lost Philip Jeffries.
I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to keep her out of it.
I found something!
Who do you think this is then?
What the hell did he say there, Albert? That's Special Agent Dale Cooper. For God's sakes, Jeffries, where the hell have you been? You've been gone damn near 2 years.
It was a dream. We live inside a dream.
I sort of fell in love with the idea of seeing Laura Palmer walking and talking. And I loved the idea of you know, visiting her in her last days. There were so many mysteries, and I felt it was almost a way to talk about the future of the thing by going into the past. And but mainly it was Laura Palmer. To me, she's such a dream.
Lynch was very stubborn. He didn't want to explain anything. If you see it as a nightmare, it's a nightmare. If you see it as reality, it's reality. He left it at that, and I prefer that, really.
But at the same time, when they do the Twin Peaks The Return, it's like you don't exactly know what's going on, but as it goes on, everything pretty much is explained. It's like it's weird, but it's explained. He's like that perfect balance between it's weird and esoteric, but yet explain. Especially like mysteries that you didn't understand about the show are the original show are explained in the later one, and I'm like, thank you. And then he basically ties it up in a bow, and then at the very end he gives you a total David Lynch what the fuck.
I'm leaving the caddy like I told you. Think you'll get a chance to give her the once-over today?
Sure. You want to pick it up later on or in the morning?
Well, if you think you can finish it, I'll be back later today.
It'll be done.
You're my man, Pete.
I see it as there's this thing. I now, looking back, I see it as starting with the O.J. Simpson trial that I was kind of obsessed with. And it struck me how someone could do murders and then go on living with themselves. So that idea led to, my first, visits with Barry Gifford, and we were talking and kind of talking about things, and it just something clicked, and we started working on this, and in working on it found out there is a medical name for this thing, psychogenic fugue, where the mind tricks itself, and you can either take on another identity or you do what you have to do to hide those things from yourself.
This is another one that's ahead of its time when you think about it, because you have to watch it a couple of times to really get into it, which is that's a good David Lynch steak dinner. You gotta really cut into it to get the good meat. This is a metaverse story. This is a parallel universe story, and once you see it that way, it's hard to see it any other way. But it plays around with the idea of parallel universes, and it does it in a non-lazy way, like so many writers are doing today. To people who call themselves writers, they think they're being clever when they do this metaverse thing. And this was a movie that was so kind of obscure and stubborn and relentlessly stubborn in the storytelling. Bill Pullman plays a jazz musician. He is getting sent videotapes of him and his wife in bed at night. People are coming into his home and videotaping him. It's very strange. And then eventually he disappears, and then this Balthazar Getty character pops up and has a dalliance with a character also being played by Patricia Arquette. So there's a little bit, consider it like a kind of parallel universe story, but mixed in is a little bit of Vertigo, the Alfred Hitchcock movie. But it isn't a Hitchcockian story. This is completely David Lynch.
every one of us has so many different sides, so many different things swimming inside. But you have to fall in love with the story to direct it. And I didn't think I was going to fall in love with the script, but I did. And that was it, and we got a lot of green lights, and away we went.
My only sunshine, you make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
This is a true story of a man who wants to see his brother, and his brother is ill. His brother in the movie is played by Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton, of course, shows up in most of these movies. He was in Wild at Heart, and then he was later in Twin Peaks. He was in Fire Walk with Me, and then he has such a wonderful scene in The Return where he's playing his guitar and he's singing, and he sees this child get run over by a car and get killed, and he sees the child's soul descend into heaven. I was just like, oh my God. That was the only other time watching a Lynch thing where I cried, because Harry Dean Stanton had already been dead. In the straight story is just, he gets to work with Sissy Spacek. And Sissy Spacek is really great in the role. She plays a kind of, she's slow of speech, but she's not mentally retarded or anything. She's just slow of speech, but it's a great performance because it's a very unglamorous performance for her. Richard Farnsworth. This is like his last role, and he was perfectly cast in the role. And he died. He also died right after that.
I'll always love you and make you happy if you will only say the same. But if you leave me for another, you'll regret it all someday. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
This was intended to be a television show. The Mulholland Drive part of the movie was meant to be a pilot for ABC. ABC passed on it, so Lynch brought the actors back to shoot all the scenes. Again, I think he was looking for a Twin Peaks style mystery that was about a place rather than people. And his focus was going to be a little bit on what we see in the movie as it was completed.
Coming all the way up here to see me from that nice hotel downtown.
No problem. What's on your mind?
Well, now, here's a man who wants to get right down to it. Kind of anxious to get to it, are you?
Whatever.
Man's attitude goes some ways, the way his life will be. Is that something you might agree with?
Sure.
Now, did you answer because that's what you thought I wanted to hear? Or did you think about what I said and answer because you truly believe that to be right?
I agree with what you said. Truly.
What'd I say?
That a man's attitude determines to a large extent how his life will be.
So since you agree, you must be a person who does not care about the good life.
How's that?
Well, stop for a little second and think about it. Can you do that for me?
Okay. I'm thinking.
No, you're not thinking. You're too busy being a smart aleck to be thinking. Now I want you to think and stop being a smart aleck. Can you try that for me?
Look, where's this going? What do you want me to do?
There's sometimes a buggy. How many drivers does a buggy have?
One.
So let's just say I'm driving this buggy, and if you fix your attitude, you can ride along with me.
Okay.
I want you to go back to work tomorrow. You were recasting the lead actress anyway. Auditioned many girls for the part. When you see the girl that was shown to you earlier today, you will say, "This is the girl." The rest of the cast can stay. That's up to you. But that lead girl is not up to you. Now you will see me one more time if you do good. You'll see me 2 more times if you do bad. Good night.
I remember a story. Do you know Nikola Tesla? Okay, Tesla was, I heard this story, sitting on a park bench, and he stares at the sun, which is dangerous to do, and the alternating current motor appears in front of him. With the image of the alternating current motor comes a complete understanding of how it works and every part that makes it up. Like that it came. This is the way ideas are. They're seeds that are filled with electricity, and they pop suddenly. One moment they're not there, the next minute you see them completely. Now sometimes they're little ideas, but you still love them, and they might lead somewhere. They don't always lead somewhere, but they might lead somewhere. So you write those ideas down, because as good as memory is, many times you forget them. And if you forget a good idea, you want to commit suicide. So you have to write them down. Then maybe that little idea that you love will attract other ideas, and a story or a scene or a character starts to form, and you follow like that.
Because he turned it into a movie, it was way more David Lynch than he could have gotten away with on TV. And there's nudity, there's probably more violence in it, and it's just way over the top weird. Whereas he got, he added a bunch of footage and made it, to give it an R-rated theatrical release. Unfortunately, the movie really didn't do very well because it was released right after 9/11. And I think they had shot most of the pilot before then. They shot it in early 2001 or part of 2000. Mulholland Drive, okay, is like a it's filmed from the point of view of someone who just survived a car accident and doesn't know who she is, right? But then we come to realize that it's actually Naomi Watts' character who is pulling all the strings and is manipulating the entire situation. What I remember about the movie was it was this sort of interesting, sort of weird mystery of like what's going on, and then at the very end it gets extremely David Lynch, where it's like, what the fuck is that? Where it's like these like small people crawl out of a thing, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
That is a point that is going to lose a lot of people, is the David Lynch moment. The David Lynch moment in this movie is when they open this box and then they fall into the box.
All I know is it's weird and it's shot on video. That's all I know, and it's long.
It's not quite video. It's digital. He shot it on digital cameras like mini DV, that kind of thing. You know, back when the technology was still, people were still screwing around with this. This is pre-HD, and it's interesting to watch. It's a little under 3 hours. It's a lot to get into if you want to watch it.
I started to dream, and some scenes came, and those scenes and other ideas came and into Inland Empire.
You've described it as a film about a woman in trouble.
A woman in trouble, yeah. You know, I always say this, a film is sort of like a book, and books get written, and the author maybe passes away, so you can't go talk to them and say,
Okay.
What did you mean, you know? But I really believe the film should stand on its own, and there should be nothing added, nothing subtracted, and you work a long time to make it just so. And it's a very precious thing, every film. So that's sort of the way it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
These are the notes that I wrote for Inland Empire when I was watching it. I wrote, like Mulholland Drive, Laura Dern, lots of close shots, weird magic, Jeremy Irons, great director, Diane Ladd, Grace Zabriskie, A Woman in Trouble, only digital color.
You know what you're getting now. That's the thing of like, that's what David Lynch did. You have these more sort of esoteric filmmakers. He and Kubrick, they made the path so that somebody can come in and be weird, and people go, oh, it's the new weird film from the weird guy, and I will watch it, and I will sort of meditate on this. It's like it can be more long form with streaming and everything, whereas before people, like David Lynch, would make these weird movies and people be like, what the hell? The hell was that? I don't get it. And then, you know, Roger Ebert would be offended by something in Blue Velvet that is like, well, it's just a movie.
When he opened his door, he saw the world. As he passed through the doorway, he caused a reflection.